And we've got Stephen Guilford to do that as well. Hello, Steve. How are you this morning?
Yeah, good. Morning.
First off, though, here's a man. Listen, everyone. We've got Steve Bray, who became known as Stop Brexit Steve because of his opposition to the UK leaving the EU. Now, you'll have seen him pop up on many a news camera shot over recent years. I've walked past him on many an occasion, having broadcast from down there at Parliament. And I want to ask him about the new legislation. But there we are. And of course, morning, Steve. And of course, there were people on the other side as well. It was a very colourful cacophony over that whole period. And that whole period went on for a long, long time. How are you doing, Steve?
Hi, yeah. I'm doing fine, thanks. And it's great to be on, to get a point across.
Well, in a slightly different manner from before, you were making a lot of noise. Did you find that the politicians warmed to you? Some politicians would have warmed to you. Did you find a few who would have walked past you, because they walk up and down there the whole time, were hostile and baleful, full of anger towards you? Did you get a bit of that?
Yeah. Like anything in life, there are people who are for you, people who are against you, and there's people that see you campaigning. They may not agree with you, but they respect you've got the right to do it and the right to be there and to get your message out, because that's democracy. At the end of the day, this bill that they were pushing through, you have people like Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, criticising Hong Kong, Myanmar, China, and yet we have the very same thing going on our doorstep. And I really can't believe he cannot see the irony of his criticisms.
Is it the very same thing?
Well, we're heading that way. Look, it's erosions. It's our democracy has become a death by a thousand cuts. We're just waiting for that knife through the heart at the moment, because they're killing our rights bit by bit as time goes on. Whereas we were in the European Union, there were checks and balances. We had a government that we were a part of this club, and the government could be held to account within that.
But there is still human rights legislation that is protecting our freedom of speech and is supranational. That's the phrase I was looking for. We still have that in place.
Yes, but the right to protest. I mean, if Priti Patel had her way, we'd all be in a darkened room muffled. And it suits them. But at the end of the day, a government that is elected to serve the people. We have a government here at the moment hell-bent on serving themselves. And that needs to change. They need to remember who they are actually serving in this country.
What would stop you? What would have stopped you protesting in this legislation, do you believe, Steve?
Well, look, at the moment, I'm respecting the COVID guidelines as much as possible. A part of this bill, I can't help but feel, is specifically aimed at me. It's the irony of that.
It did occur to me just a little bit. And do you think it's something of the kind of chagrin, perhaps? There's a word you'll like, because it's not from these parts. Do you think it was the annoyance of some politicians in there that you were raining on their parade, and so they've... well, I don't know. Or is it ridiculous to think it? But setting noise limits on protests and applying the rules possibly to just a demonstration by just one person. So you're thinking, who could that one person be? You reckon it's you, do you?
Well, yes, me, and certainly people like me, obviously. A protest has to be effective at getting the message out. Otherwise, there is no point in the protest. A protest by its very nature will be noisy, may inconvenience people. But that's what happens with a democratic right to protest.
There is the situation.
I agree.
I know you agree. There is the situation. There is a situation, though, that you were protesting and making a lot of decibels, and so that we couldn't hear pro-EU politicians, anti-Brexit politicians who are being interviewed, articulating the arguments very well on platforms, interviewed by our people and by Kay Burley and by Krishnan Guru Murthy, and you were drowning them out.
Okay, let me dispel this myth here.
Dispel it.
9 times out of 10, I'm silent in behind with the placards. When they shut off that green, okay, I could not get in with placards, but I had a voice. And if I couldn't be seen, then I was going to make sure I was going to be heard. Because the people of Britain... Brexit is the biggest deception this country has ever had. And
Another
it was
debate.
perpetrated by the very people that are supposed to lead.
But you and the bloke with the glockenspiel, you know, we couldn't hear.
Yeah. He only came once, the guy, and he wasn't part of our protest. He was a different protest.
To be fair, Pep, go on.
I agree with him about Brexit, but obviously we're not here to discuss that. But he's actually made a point of why he had to shout. It's because he couldn't be seen. So when you actually hear what his explanation of why he had to shout, it's because when his placard wasn't visible. So there you go. There's always an explanation to something, isn't there? And there's always, that's why I'm saying this bill, I haven't really analysed it actually, but I will do now because of those protests. And I just think all of us as citizens have a duty to go and look at things that people are protesting about. If we go and look at it and think, actually, I agree with the government. Yeah, that's, they should be doing that. If you've looked at what it really means and you agree with it, that's fine. But if you look at what it really means and you think, hold on a minute, that's not proper democracy, then at least you've been propelled into looking at it by the protesters. And that's my point, really. My point isn't that we should agree with every protester and they've always got a point. But what we should do is think, why have they been driven to protest? They must have some really strong reason to do something. And if you go and look at their strong reason and you think, no, that's a load of rubbish, then that's fine. But at least you've done your duty as a citizen to go and examine why people are protesting about certain things.
But there was a danger, wasn't there, with Steve a little bit that, your favourite Dominic, I'm sure, not Cummings, not Rob, but Dominic Grieve, he's up there, and then there's such a noise and such a cacophony going down, we can't listen. But I absolutely hear what you say. And Sadiq Khan has supported you, the Mayor of London, and he said, that it means protesters like you may be criminalised. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, he actually said in an article as well, he's heckled all the time. I've seen him being heckled. And to him, it's just like water off a duck's back, to be honest. He's used to it. And he actually says himself, that's their democratic right. And here, this is what's been lost. We have a government hell-bent on taking back control. What they didn't say was they wanted to take control from all of us. And that is exactly what they're doing, bit by bit. And leaving the European Union, at the moment, we're in lockdown, people are furloughed. Even the governor at the Bank of England said Brexit, the economic disaster that will come from it, is far worse than what we've been through with this pandemic.
I'm trying to ever so slightly steer it away from that particular debate, which we've had famously, Steve, memorably and very loudly, certainly breaking the decibel laws on many an occasion. And it's always a lively and fascinating and passionate affair. Your point is made about the worries that you have when it comes to protesting. Steve.